can be one of the most expensive and time-consuming parts of the writing and publishing process. And it can also be emotionally exhausting. So you may be wondering, as an author preparing to publish or who has already published and is on the fence about going back and adjusting some of your books, whether or not your books really need to be edited, especially if you're an editor yourself or you're really good at catching small details on your own that need to be corrected. So today, I am going to help break down with a real life example of one of my own books before and after having edits done, what kind of things editors catch that might slip through in our page blindness phase. Page blindness comes when we are too close to the pace to see it objectively ourselves. So if we've read the piece too many times, our brain can start to autocorrect these errors, or if we automatically know what we meant, we may not see objectively how a reader views the book. But then not everybody has to go pay for editing. So we're going to talk about when you might want to versus when you can probably get by with an assisted editing tool of your own. My name is Katherine D. Graham. I'm a USA Today bestselling dark fantasy author, and the book on the screen is my debut epic fantasy novel, The Vow That Twisted Fate. This is the first edition version that had only been self-edited at this point before I sent it off to any human editors. Now, I use a system called Autocrit, which is a self-editing tool to help me with my developmental and line and copy edits. At the time when I was writing this book, Autocrit didn't have developmental editing tools to help me with plot and pacing and world building and character development. So I had to just do that on my own with my own human brain and eyes, right? Now, tools like Autocrit that are 100% safely in the industry's AI-assisted category do not write or rewrite any portion of your book for you. So they are safely AI-assisted because they're not giving you rewording suggestions, for example. But you have to be careful about whether the tools that you do use, if you decide to go with a self-editing assistant tool, whether they meet the industry's current criteria for AI assisted or not. I have a video up on the channel about what Amazon KDP currently considers AI generated and requires disclosures for versus what they do not, if you're interested in checking that out. So with that being said, let's give this a try. I can already see some errors, and I'm just going to be completely candid. It has been 4 years since this book has come out. The new version, which is the version we're going to see after we look through the first edition, has been edited by several human editors as well as going through a self-edit. So it is much, much more polished. But I do not use so many human editors anymore because this is a craft. Writing is a craft. The more you do it, the better you get at it, right? You find your balance and you can eventually lean on yourself for a lot, not necessarily 100%, but a lot of your editing. So first, let's tackle developmental. Developmental is that first stage of editing where you're looking for, are there any plot holes? Is your plot easy to understand? Is the pacing good? Is it slow anywhere or too fast anywhere? Are the characters relatable and believable and likable or hateable in the case of our villains? Is the world building spread out in a way that makes it both immersive and easy to understand, but not info dumping? All of these points fall onto a developmental editor's lap, and that is an entire edit by itself. Once you are 100% finished with that level of immersion and revision, then you move on to the technical edits for grammar and typos and flow and readability and tense consistency and POV consistency. But for right now, we're just looking developmental. So for this one, I'm going to open with this opening line. There are some who say I am the reincarnation of one of my ancestors, the queen who completely vanquished all evil in our world once and for all. It's quite a mouthful. It's a little long-winded, but considering that most of this piece does lean toward long-ended, it does give the reader a good idea of what they should expect tone-wise. The question that I would ask past me reading this as a developmental editor who's been away from this book for a few years now, if this was a client's book, would be, could there be a stronger hook here? Could there be a stronger hook? Now, the version that ended up going to press kept this hook, But the extended edition, the abridged version that came out recently, has a new and better story question inspiring hook. What you want to do is make sure that you grab your reader's attention from the start, because a lot of readers and agents only give you a single line, maybe two, to convince them to read the book. So, is there enough information in the opening line to make them have to read more? If not, you could potentially make it stronger. This shows who our main character is. We're in their head. So that says, I am the reincarnation of one of my ancestors. Well, are they or not? There's one subtle hook. We also have an introduction to the world a little bit, that they're living in a world where there's nothing evil. And then we're going to go here, though my issue with this is the passive nature, especially when followed by lengthy exposition that is quite bluntly an info dump from the get-go. Those same people would tell you stories of a time when our world was polluted with smog, covered with man-made towers of glass and concrete and metal. They would tell of hideous and wicked creatures who killed for pleasure or greed, etc., etc., etc. So this is all world building. We do not actually get action on this page until here, where Flora is exiting the towering trees. Then we start to see some repetition in our concepts. Tree line of towering trees that make up the forest. As we exit the forest tree line would be a much simpler way of putting all of that without needing the repetition. Then here we have more info dumps. Starting in below us, the dirt gives way to cobblestones covered in moss as we make our way to the drawbridge, currently lowered over a 12-foot wide, 20-foot deep moat. The castle is a large bleached white structure of stone with 4 buttresses and outdoor balconies on the top floor of a 3-story building, towers above the 12-foot wall that surrounds it just above the moat, which we've already talked about the moat once, right? There are so many details in the immediate scene setting world building level here that just don't have to be had. So we can say, simplify this. Narrow it down. A reader could get so distracted trying to picture everything just right that it completely pulls them out of the tension in the scene and the hook that we've been building up. And it also makes me have this red flag as an editor that the rest of the book is going to be heavy with this kind of exposition, world building heavy prose. So we're going to go on down. Now we're talking about the empty moat. Okay. So you're just talking about the moat. Now it's an empty moat. That's more details we could have shown above. The horse's hooves clatter and echo into the empty moat below as we cross the stone drawbridge. Behind us, the sun has begun its descent into twilight, sending shadows long against the side of the castle before us. We pass through the gaping open gate with its raised iron grill raised above us. See, we've got so much repetition. Raised, and held in place by coiled thick chains on steel spools just inside either side of the arc. Terminology's way off. This is a portcullis here. So get your terminology right. So, typoing myself here. Portcullis. And smells of baking bread and a variety of herbs mixed with butter. If I white are the first to welcome me home. And now we're getting into some more immersive, more active details. Children laughing, Flora's walking through, people are cooking, and now the scene really gets going. So from a developmental start, this is a very, very slow start. It is too heavy on details we don't have to have this level of depth on in order to just get to the point. All this stuff through here should be simplified into basically she's walking out of the woods on her horse, crossing the bridge, and is in the market. It should not be taking me this much page time to get all of that in play. So if I take all of this here, this is 367 words. And since the average page is 250 words when it comes to print, that's over a full page, going on to a page and a half almost, not quite, worth of exposition before we ever see any action. It's just too slow. So a developmental editor would be able to pull those things out for me. Now, a technical editor, a line and copy editor, once I revise all the pacing issues here and cut out the redundancies and things like that, is going to take this one step further. It's going to catch those grammatical errors and typos for us. So I've got track changes turned on here. Those same people would tell you stories of a time when our world was polluted with smog, covered with man-made towers of glass and concrete and metal. This is an incomplete sentence. Those same people would tell you stories of a time when our world was polluted with smog, covered with man-made towers of glass and concrete and metal. And XYZ, our missing final clause here, would make this a complete sentence, or making this an and instead of a comma, was polluted with smog and covered with man-made towers of glass and concrete and metal. They would tell of hideous, wicked creatures who killed for pleasure or greed instead of living in harmony with each other and the earth as it exists today. They would tell of a war fought with machines and fire and weapons that laid low entire cities in seconds. Those stories are all just twisted versions of history from the dusty tomes in the castle library today. So these kind of details are going to be caught by your line and copy editor. They're also going to catch things like tense shifts. And we start out here. There are some who say present tense. The rest of the scene is mostly present tense, but they would tell is past tense. So they tell of hideous and wicked creatures who killed for pleasure or greed. Slippery little things like that are harder to pick up on, even with assisted tools, because it's difficult to tell whether you're supposing something that would have been in the past or in the present. So we've got a mix going on here. We have tense shifts in here. We have incomplete sentences in here. We have redundancies and repetitiveness in here. Like, I don't need to mention the moat this many times. I've got the moat here. I've got the moat down below. The forest line as we exit the forest tree line. Those are all things that could be caught on the line edit level if the dev editor did not catch them for you. So let's take a look at what this looked like once a human being got a hold of the piece. So I am going to shift the file for us. Hold on here. All right. Thanks for bearing with me. So this is the final version. It's the completely edited version. I ended up sending this version to Talon David to do the Spanish translation for The Vow That Twisted Fate. One of the things that catches my eye looking back at this right off the bat is the fact that there's a much better flow. I don't open this book and immediately get hit with giant walls of exposition. That speaks volumes to my dev editor's recommendation, because she gave me the same advice that I just told you I would have given other people. Cut out the extra stuff that doesn't need to be there. Now, all that stuff about how many floors the castle is, what color the castle is, how deep exactly the moat is, all these details that don't matter suddenly got summarized. The castle, a bleached white structure of stone, towers above the walls before us. It still gives us an image of a bleached white stone castle towering above these big walls, and leaves the rest to the reader's imagination. So it's done a much better job of that world building. Now, still, for stylistic choice, I did leave a little bit of exposition in here, but I split up the paragraphs when the purpose changed from describing the world to describing the creatures and people, because the subject of the paragraph shifted, which is something that you learn in your editing side, is to improve your flow, split up your paragraph when the purpose of the paragraph changes. There are some who say I'm the reincarnation of one of my ancestors, the White Queen who vanquished all evil in our world once and for all. Those same people tell stories of a time when our world was polluted with smog and covered with man-made towers of glass, concrete, and metal. We've only got the one and here at the end of our serialized comma list. They tell of hideous and wicked creatures who killed for pleasure or greed. It caught that typo there, instead of living in harmony with each other and the earth as we do today. They tell of a war fought with machines, fire, and weapons that laid low entire cities in seconds. Those stories are all just twisted versions of history from the dusty tomes that sit in the castle library today. My horse Flora slows to a trot as we exit the towering trees of the forest. I decided to completely get rid of the tree line at the suggestion of my editors. Above us, the sky is as blue as a baby robin's egg. Below us, the dirt gives way to cobblestones covered in moss. We cross the drawbridge over the moat. No more talking about their echoing. We're not getting dragged down into purple prose, which is overwriting just for the sake of having extra description. The setting sun behind me casts an orange glow against the castle's white walls. Only a few steps inside the gate, I am met by the smell of fresh rosemary bread. We have gotten specific here with the kind of bread that is being smelled. My mouth waters when we pass the outdoor stone ovens on the edge of the market. Children play, laughing in the streets. So now we are in the action. So the before was over 300 words to get to this point, right? Almost 400 words to get to this point. Now, this same bit is 225 words. We have less than a page. We have saved ourselves over 100 words to get this on the page. And in a piece that's still 100,592 words long in total, every word matters. The average debut fantasy novel is 100,000 words. So you have to be very purposeful with the words you choose. So this piece specifically was edited by a developmental editor, and then it went to a beta reader, and then it went to a line editor who did not end up doing the line edit. I self-edited on the line editing level with Autocrit after I finished my developmental edits revisions from the dev editor. And I have a video on Autocrit if you would like to see it. It's in my indie author behind the scenes playlist here on YouTube. So then I did my line edit on Autocrit, and then I had my fantastic copy editor who did a fantastic job getting a lot of this cleaned up, fixing those tense shifts, getting the sentences reworded correctly, and then it went to a proofreader for the final proofread. So there was a lot of human eyes and hands involved in this specific book. Now, there are other books that I've written that over time I have cut out more and more of that process. I have not paid for a full dev edit by a human dev editor in a very long time. But one of the same people who did the dev edit for me before does professional beta reads for me now, where they, instead of mapping out all the developmental stuff and needing to work as hands-on on the content suggestions, can leave me simpler, actionable feedback on plot, pacing, world building, and character development. And that helps me make sure my content's on point. I then do my own line edit, I do my own copy edit, and I send it out to a human proofreader. So on a human side now, my average book gets a professional beta read, and it gets a proofread by a human, and everything else I do myself. If you are able to edit your own piece, I suggest stepping away from your book, give it time to rest, to sort of forget what you were writing and come back and view it yourself. If I do a technical edit for a client, one of the tips that I picked up from a friend is to start at the end of the book and edit backwards. You could do this paragraph by paragraph, which is what I typically do. You could do it backwards, one chapter at a time. The goal is to not get caught up in your story itself. Instead, you are just looking for grammatical errors, typos, tense shifts, and things like that. That would be a suggestion. Doing an editorial e-reader that reads about 200 words or one standard page aloud for you so that you can catch your own typos with audible cues. That's another suggestion. Printing it out and viewing it on print can also work wonders for catching things you miss on the screen. So there's a lot of things you can try. Now, at that point, I would say to let it rest again. And if you still find errors when you come back, it may be time to just accept the fact that you need at least a human proofread. You can ask human editors to do a $5 sample for you, have them do a few pages, and see what level of editing corrections they find. And if they don't find really anything, then you may be okay. So I would say, in general, the majority of people, even us editors, do need at least a human proofread. There's nothing that beats a human pair of eyes on your piece. Um, we're just too close to the book to not have page blindness most of the time. Outside of that, the level of depth that you need assistance with is going to vary by person. So prepare to start with a lot of help and work yourself back if you get used to the process. So I hope that this has helped you see that editors can definitely make a huge difference in your writing process. If you have questions about finding editors or anything like that, feel free to drop them in the box for us and let us know how your journey has been. Have you been able to self edit really well without these errors slipping through? Do you have go-to tools that are safely in the AI assisted category that don't suggest sentence rephrasing or anything that the community could use? Let us know. Best of luck with your writing, editing, and publishing. Take care.